Adam here, one of Sensei Ralph's black belt students, and I am going to be doing a presentation on the importance of taking notes. Being a student of Goju-Ryu is a never-ending journey. We are always learning during our training. It could be a new kata, the application of a technique, a personal correction, a new fact about karate, an exercise routine, or even something we learn about ourselves. Writing notes about all these pieces of knowledge you gain helps you remember and build a better understanding of your karate. It's often hard to remember every detail you learn during class. It's even harder when you attend a training seminar that lasts all day, or even lasts over several days. A lot of information is presented, and while it's fresh in your memory, it's important you write down a few key things you learned. When you review your notes, it helps you remember some of the key things you learned until you fully internalize it, and it becomes second nature. Don't worry about trying to write down every single detail because there's so much information presented. Just do your best to write down a few key things, and then that'll help you later on. What can I use to take notes? You can start with plain old paper and pencil. You don't need a fancy notebook, but I did pick one up for myself when I was at one of the gashukus I attended. The best thing you can do is always keep a pencil or pen and a small notebook in your gear bag at all times. It's not fancy, but it just works for taking notes or drawing pictures. You don't need power or an internet connection to write in your notebook. If you get a handout in class, you can even just stick it in your notebook to keep it for later. These days, we have access to a lot of technology. An electronic note-taking application to take digital notes is another way to take notes. You gain additional flexibility to save web links, pictures, audio, and video recordings. Remember that video links that you add to your notes should just be for reference. They don't replace going to the dojo. You should use whatever tool you feel most comfortable using for taking notes. No matter what tool you decide to use, the most important thing to remember is to just take notes. So when do I take notes? Since taking notes should be a habit, it's something you need to work on repeatedly and consistently. Here are a few suggestions on when to take notes. Take notes at the end of each class. This will help you get into the habit of writing down something you learned. At an all-day training seminar, take a moment during each water break or end of each training session to write down a few quick notes about what you were working on in your session. At the end of the day, review your notes. Add more details so that you can understand any new concepts you learned. If you are doing training on your own and you find you have a question, write it down so you can ask sensei or even one of the senpai the next time you're in class. Here are some personal experiences from myself, Senpai Heather, and Senpai Mari related to taking notes. I remember recently that sensei put some names on the board in several of the classes for the dojo to research. There was one night he asked who did research and had an answer. Only a few people raised their hands. I bet if they had written it down in their notebook, they probably would have been one of the people raising their hand that they did the research. I didn't raise my hand, though honestly, I think I was out of the class the night he put that particular term on the board.
For me, I take notes at training as just little snippets. Then I go back later and rewrite them to make sure I understand what was taught. I draw diagrams and I list questions for what I missed. When I rewrite the notes, it helps them stick in my head. This is what I did while I was in school, and it still works today.
Great advice, Senpai Heather.
When I went to Canada for the MCF in 2018, I took a ton of notes as soon as there was any kind of break. I taped them all up for a few months after that trip. The experience had a meaningful impact on my overall relationship with the Goju-Ryu, and especially helped me understand and appreciate the IOGKF organization itself. It's a little funny to look back at what I wrote, including something I thought might work when sparring with Senpai Adam. Most of this would have been forgotten if I hadn't written it down.
I'm pretty sure Senpai Mari tried whatever she learned out on me because she makes it more challenging to spar every time, and that's awesome. Remember, it's important to take notes. It helps you remember new things you learned. You have a place to write down questions you have. Your notes also help you bring new knowledge and understanding about Goju-Ryu back to the dojo to share with the rest of the dojo family. Write notes often review them often, and share what you learn with your dojo family. I hope this is helpful for understanding why it's important to take notes.